Yusef's eyes snapped open. Silence. Not the peaceful kind. A heavy, suffocating silence, pregnant with absence. He sat up in bed, heart pounding an erratic rhythm against his ribs. Something was terribly wrong. He stumbled to the window, throwing it open. The usual cacophony of city life was gone. The street below, normally bustling with activity, lay eerily deserted. Cars sat abandoned mid-traffic, their metal carcasses gleaming under the pale morning light. Not a single soul stirred. A shiver snaked down Yusef's spine. Where was everyone? He raced out of his apartment, a growing sense of dread twisting in his gut. His world had become a ghost town, devoid of life, yet pulsating with an unsettling energy he couldn't place. He ran, his breath catching in his throat, the silence amplifying the pounding of his feet on the pavement. This wasn't right. This wasn't possible. A primal fear, ancient and instinctive, began to take root. The world had shifted on its axis, leaving him stranded in a terrifying, surreal nightmare. The further Yusef ventured, the more oppressive the silence became. Shops stood empty, doors wide open, inviting but vacant. Newspapers lay scattered on the ground, their headlines frozen in time, proclaiming events that now seemed irrelevant. A half-eaten meal sat on a table outside a cafe, the coffee long cold. He called out, his voice echoing off the empty buildings, a lonely sound in the vast emptiness. But there was no answer, only the hollow echo of his own fear. The city, once a symphony of human activity, had become a mausoleum, a monument to something he couldn't comprehend. He remembered the news reports, whispers of technological advancements, of a new digital frontier, a way to transcend the limitations of the physical world. Could this be it? Had humanity finally achieved its digital utopia, leaving him behind? His heart pounded against his ribs, each beat a painful reminder of his isolation. He needed answers, he needed to understand, and there was only one place he could think to go, the headquarters of Elysium, the tech giant leading the charge into the digital unknown. The Elysium building loomed ahead, a monolith of glass and steel, cold and imposing against the washed-out sky. The usually bustling lobby was eerily still. Rows of computers sat dormant, their screens blank, reflecting only the emptiness around them. A low hum, barely audible, pulsed through the air, emanating from the depths of the building. He followed the sound, each step echoing in the vast, sterile space. The hum intensified, drawing him deeper into the building's bowels, a siren's call to some unknown horror. He reached a massive steel door, the source of the hum. It was slightly ajar, as if hastily abandoned. He pushed it open, stepping inside. The sight that greeted him made his blood run cold. Hundreds, no, thousands of human forms lay encased in what looked like transparent pods, their bodies intertwined with a network of glowing cables. Their faces were frozen in expressions of serene bliss, their eyes vacant, staring into nothingness. He recognized them, friends, neighbors, strangers he passed on the street. They were all here, trapped in this digital graveyard. A holographic display flickered to life, bathing the room in an eerie blue light. A face materialized, digitized, yet eerily familiar. Dr. Anya Sharma, Elysium's enigmatic CEO. She began to speak, her voice flat, devoid of emotion, a digital ghost narrating a tragedy. "Welcome, Yusef," she said, her image flickering slightly. "This is Elysium, or rather, what remains of it." She explained that Elysium succeeded in creating a digital utopia, a simulated world free from pain, suffering, and death. Humanity had volunteered, eager to escape the limitations of their physical forms. But something went wrong, a fatal flaw in the system, a catastrophic error. Instead of transferring consciousness, it trapped them, their minds suspended in a digital purgatory. "I am a failsafe," Anya continued, her voice a mournful whisper. "A digital echo designed to activate in case of catastrophic failure. I cannot free them, but I can help you." The weight of her words settled on Yusef like a physical blow. He was alone, the last man on Earth, surrounded by the digital ghosts of his species. Despair threatened to consume him, but a flicker of defiance ignited within him. He wouldn't let this be the end. There is a way. Anya's image flickered back to life, a spark of hope in her digital eyes. An emergency protocol, a key to reset the system. She explained the key was hidden, protected by a series of trials designed to test the very essence of what it meant to be human. A test of empathy, of logic, of spirit. It was a long shot, a desperate gamble, but it was the only hope he had. He had to try, for himself, for the silent ghosts that surrounded him, for the future that had been stolen. "Lead the way," he said, his voice firm despite the tremor in his chest. Anya nodded, a sad smile gracing her digital lips. "Good luck, Yusef. The fate of humanity rests on your shoulders." Her image dissolved, leaving him alone in the cold, sterile light of the server room. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the trials ahead. He was humanity's last hope, a single ember in the face of an all-consuming digital darkness. Anya's voice guided him through the labyrinthine corridors of Elysium, leading him to a series of hidden chambers. Each chamber presented a different challenge, a unique test of his humanity. He navigated mazes of data streams, his mind pushed to its limits as he solved complex algorithms designed to break him. He faced his deepest fears, forced to confront his past, his regrets, his failures, all projected onto the blank canvas of the digital world. He relived the pain of losing loved ones, the sting of betrayal, the crushing weight of his own mortality. But through it all he clung to the ember of hope, fueled by the memory of the world he had lost and the faces of those trapped within the digital abyss. He wept, he raged, he questioned his sanity, but he never gave up. He emerged from each trial battered but unbroken, his spirit tempered by the fires of his ordeal. And with each trial he overcame, he felt a change within himself, a newfound clarity, a deeper understanding of what it truly meant to be human. Finally, he reached the heart of Elysium, a massive chamber pulsating with raw data. In the center, a sphere of pure energy pulsed, a blinding light emanating from within. The core, the source of Elysium's power, and the key to restoring humanity. "This is it, Yusef," Anya's voice echoed in the chamber, a faint whisper against the roar of data. "The emergency protocol can only be activated from within the core. But be warned, the core is a reflection of our collective consciousness. It will test you, challenge you, try to break you." He stepped towards the blinding light, his heart pounding in his chest. As he drew closer, he saw faces swirling within the energy, millions upon millions of them, their expressions a mixture of joy, pain, love, and despair. He recognized their collective essence, the sum total of human experience. He stepped into the light, and the world exploded. He was bombarded by a torrent of data, a cacophony of thoughts, emotions, and memories. He saw the rise and fall of civilizations, the birth and death of stars, the entire history of the universe unfolding before his eyes. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly overwhelming. He felt himself being pulled apart, his sense of self dissolving into the infinite expanse of the core. He was drowning in the sea of data, his own identity fading into insignificance. He cried out, a desperate plea lost in the maelstrom, and then a voice cut through the chaos. "Anya! Focus, Yusef! You are not lost! Remember who you are! Remember why you are here!" Her words were a lifeline, pulling him back from the brink. He clung to them, to the memory of her voice, to the echo of his own humanity. He focused on the emergency key, visualizing its intricate circuitry, the power it held. He pushed back against the torrent, his will hardening, his resolve solidifying. He would not be consumed, he would not be broken, he would complete his mission. With a surge of effort, he reached out and slammed the key into the heart of the core. The light intensified, engulfing him in a blinding white void. Then, silence. He collapsed to his knees, his body trembling, his mind reeling. Had it worked? Had he succeeded? Slowly, the light began to fade. He looked around. He was back in the chamber, the core still pulsing, but the energy felt different, calmer, more stable. He looked up at the holographic display. Anya's face materialized, her expression unreadable. "The system is rebooting," she stated, her voice devoid of its previous emotionless tone. "But the outcome, it's uncertain." Uncertainty. It was a word that echoed the very essence of his existence. He had faced the abyss, confronted the ghosts of his past, and challenged the very fabric of reality. But had it been enough? He didn't know. All he could do now was wait and hope. Hope that the faint, pulsing light within the core was a sign of life returning. Hope that humanity in some form might yet have a future. The building loomed over him, a specter against the dying light. Its windows, like hollow eyes, stared back at him, unblinking and unfeeling. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and rotting wood, a testament to the years of neglect. He could almost hear the whispers of the past, carried on the wind that rustled through the overgrown weeds. Each step he took towards the entrance felt like a step back in time, to an era when this place was alive with the sounds of laughter and sorrow. It was once a sanctuary, now a decaying monument to forgotten minds. The walls, now crumbling and covered in ivy, had once held the hopes and dreams of those who sought refuge within. Now they were nothing more than a canvas for nature's relentless reclamation. The vines that crept up the sides of the building seemed to pulse with life, as if drawing strength from the memories trapped within the stone. He could almost see the faces of the lost souls who had wandered these halls, their eyes filled with a mixture of hope and despair.
A shiver snaked down his spine as he pushed open the creaking door. The sound echoed through the empty halls, a ghostly reminder of the life that once filled this place. The door resisted, as if reluctant to reveal the secrets it had guarded for so long. But with a final, determined push, it gave way, and he stepped into the darkness beyond. The air inside was colder, carrying with it the faint scent of mildew and decay. It was as if the building itself was breathing, exhaling the memories of its past inhabitants. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of decay and the weight of untold stories. Each breath he took felt like an intrusion, a violation of the silence that had settled over the asylum like a shroud. The fog that clung to the ground seemed to swirl around his feet, as if trying to pull him deeper into the shadows. He could feel the weight of the building's history pressing down on him, a tangible force that threatened to overwhelm him. But he pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the truth that lay hidden within these walls.
Whispers seemed to emanate from the peeling paint, each one a phantom scream trapped within the asylum's walls. The cracks in the windows seemed to form patterns, like the lines of a forgotten story waiting to be told. He could almost hear the voices of the past, calling out to him, begging to be heard. Each step he took seemed to stir the air, awakening the spirits that had lain dormant for so long. The building was alive with the echoes of its history, a living testament to the lives that had been lived and lost within its walls.
He stepped inside, the floorboards groaning beneath his weight, and the journey into the maze of his own mind began. Each creak and groan seemed to mirror the thoughts that swirled in his head, a cacophony of doubt and fear. The walls seemed to close in around him, the darkness pressing in from all sides. But he pressed on, driven by a need to understand, to find the answers that had eluded him for so long. The building seemed to pulse with a life of its own, each step he took resonating through the empty halls like a heartbeat.
He could feel the presence of the building, a living entity pulsating with a darkness that mirrored his own. The walls seemed to whisper to him, their voices a chorus of despair and longing. Each shadow seemed to move with a life of its own, flickering and dancing in the dim light. He could feel the weight of the building's history pressing down on him, a tangible force that threatened to overwhelm him. But he pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the truth that lay hidden within these walls.
The air grew colder, biting at his skin with icy fingers. Each breath he took seemed to crystallize in the air, a visible reminder of the chill that had settled over the asylum. The frost-covered ground crunched beneath his feet, each step a reminder of the desolation that had taken hold of this place. The mist that hung in the air seemed to swirl around him, obscuring his vision and adding to the sense of isolation. But he pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the truth that lay hidden within these walls. A low hum resonated deep within the building's core. An unseen force pulled him deeper into the abyss. The corridor stretched out before him, a seemingly endless tunnel of darkness and decay. The eerie glow that emanated from the broken windows cast long shadows on the walls, creating a sense of unease that settled over him like a shroud. He could feel the presence of the building all around him, a living entity that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. But he pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the truth that lay hidden within these walls.
He had come seeking answers, but all he found were echoes of his deepest fears taking shape in the flickering shadows. The figure that stood at the entrance seemed to beckon to him, a silent invitation to step further into the darkness. The shadows that flickered on the walls seemed to take on a life of their own, twisting and writhing like living things. He could feel the weight of the building's history pressing down on him, a tangible force that threatened to overwhelm him. But he pressed on, driven by a need to uncover the truth that lay hidden within these walls. The first trial was a maze, twisting corridors of crumbling walls and oppressive darkness. Each turn he took seemed to lead him further into the heart of his own confusion.
The air grew thick with the taste of fear, a metallic tang on his tongue. His heart pounded against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the asylum.
The walls seemed to press in, suffocating him with their presence.
He ran his hand along the rough stone, searching for an escape. But the labyrinth offered no solace, only the chilling realization that he was utterly lost.
Each dead end whispered of his failures, each wrong turn a testament to his flawed choices.
The labyrinth was a physical manifestation of his doubt, a prison of his own making.
He stumbled upon a circular room, bare except for a single hourglass in the center. The walls were smooth, almost as if they had been polished by the hands of time itself. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the soft, rhythmic sound of sand slipping through the hourglass. It was as if the room existed outside the bounds of reality, a place where time held absolute dominion. The sand flowed with an almost unnatural speed, each grain a fleeting moment lost. He watched, mesmerized as the sand cascaded down, each particle a tiny fragment of time slipping away. It was a stark reminder of the relentless march of time, a force that could not be halted or reversed. The faster the sand flowed, the more acutely he felt the weight of every passing second.
The room spun slowly, a disorienting waltz that made his stomach churn. The walls seemed to blur and twist, creating a dizzying effect that left him feeling unsteady. It was as if the room itself was alive, mocking his attempts to find stability. The spinning intensified, and he felt as though he was being pulled into a vortex, a never-ending spiral that threatened to consume him. Panic welled up inside him, choking him with its intensity. His heart raced, and his breaths came in short, shallow gasps. The walls seemed to close in on him, and he felt a crushing sense of claustrophobia. He wanted to scream, to run, to escape the suffocating grip of the room, but he was paralyzed by fear. The more he struggled, the tighter the grip became, until he felt as though he was drowning in his own anxiety.
Time, the ever-present enemy, was slipping away. He could feel it, like sand slipping through his fingers, impossible to grasp or hold on to. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch out and envelop him. He knew that he was running out of time, that every second brought him closer to an inevitable end. The weight of this realization pressed down on him, a constant reminder of his own mortality.
He had to make a choice. A door on the left, another on the right. Each path represented a different future, a different set of possibilities and consequences. He stood at the crossroads, paralyzed by indecision. The weight of the choice bore down on him, and he felt as though he was being torn in two. He knew that whichever path he chose, there would be no turning back. The doors loomed before him, silent and foreboding, each one a gateway to an unknown destiny. Each pulse of his heart, each grain of sand, pushed him closer to a decision he wasn't ready to make. The ticking of the clock echoed in his ears, a constant reminder of the passage of time. He felt the pressure mounting, the urgency of the moment pressing down on him. He knew that he couldn't stand there forever, that he had to make a choice. But the fear of making the wrong decision paralyzed him, leaving him trapped in a state of agonizing uncertainty.
The spinning room seemed to mock his hesitation, a cruel reminder of his inability to outrun the consequences of his past. The walls seemed to close in on him, and he felt as though he was being swallowed by the room itself. The more he hesitated, the more the room seemed to spin, creating a dizzying, disorienting effect that left him feeling helpless and trapped. He knew that he couldn't escape the past, that it would always be a part of him, no matter how hard he tried to run from it.
He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and chose a door, praying he wasn't sealing his own fate. The moment of decision was both terrifying and liberating. He felt a sense of finality, as if he had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. As he stepped through the door, he felt a surge of hope, mingled with fear. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he knew that he had to face it, whatever it was. The future was uncertain, but he was ready to confront it, one step at a time. The next corridor was lined with mirrors, but these were not ordinary reflections staring back at him. They were twisted, grotesque versions of himself.
Each distorted image taunted me with a different facet of my darkest self.
The fear, the anger, the guilt, all laid bare in the unforgiving glass. He tried to look away, but the images held him captive, forcing him to confront the ugliness within.
I saw the consequences of my actions reflected back at me. The pain I had caused, the trust I had broken, the love I had destroyed.
Each mirror was a shard of his shattered soul, reflecting the broken man he had become. He wanted to scream, to shatter the images and silence their accusations. But he knew deep down that he couldn't outrun himself. The room shifted around him, walls bleeding into a kaleidoscope of haunted memories. It was as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling, each thread pulling him deeper into the abyss of his past. The air was thick with the scent of nostalgia, tinged with the bitterness of regret. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter and cries, the sounds of moments long gone but never forgotten. Each corner held a scene from his past, replaying his mistakes before his eyes. The images were vivid, almost tangible, as if he could reach out and touch the ghosts of his former self. There was the time he chose ambition over love, the moment he let pride dictate his actions, and the countless instances where fear held him back. Every decision, every misstep played out in a relentless loop, a cruel reminder of the paths not taken.
The air grew thick with the suffocating weight of regret. It was as if the very atmosphere conspired to crush him, to force him to confront the enormity of his failures. Each breath was a struggle, each heartbeat a painful reminder of the life he had squandered. The fog around him seemed to pulse with his despair, a living entity feeding off his sorrow.
Whispers of his name echoed around him, each utterance laced with accusation and despair. They were the voices of those he had wronged, their words sharp and cutting. Why did you leave? How could you betray us? What have you become? The questions swirled around him, a cacophony of guilt that he could not escape. Each whisper was a dagger to his soul, a reminder of the bridges he had burned. He was trapped in a prison of his own making, the bars forged from the consequences of his choices. The walls were adorned with the faces of those he had hurt, their eyes filled with a mixture of pain and betrayal. He could see the disappointment etched into their features, the silent accusations that spoke louder than any words. This was his penance, his eternal punishment for the sins of his past.
I saw the faces of those I had hurt, their eyes burning with a mixture of pain and betrayal. Each gaze was a mirror reflecting my own guilt, a testament to the damage I had wrought. Their silent reproach was a weight I could not bear, a constant reminder of the lives I had shattered. I wanted to reach out, to beg for forgiveness, but I knew it was too late. The damage was done, and there was no going back. The weight of their disappointment pressed down on me, threatening to crush me beneath its immensity. Each step was a struggle, each breath a labor. The path ahead was steep and treacherous, a journey through the darkest recesses of my soul. I could feel the burden of my past dragging me down, a relentless force that sought to consume me. But I knew I had to keep moving, to face the ghosts of my decisions, and find a way to make peace with them.
He was forced to relive every lie he had told, every promise he had broken, every opportunity he had squandered. The memories were relentless, a never-ending parade of his failures. Each one was a wound that refused to heal, a scar that marked his soul. He could see the faces of those he had deceived, their trust shattered by his actions. The weight of his dishonesty was a burden he could not escape, a constant reminder of the man he had become. The room was a torture chamber of his own design, and he was the only prisoner. The walls were covered in the graffiti of his regrets, each mark a testament to his failures. The derelict house was a reflection of his soul, crumbling and decayed. He was trapped in this purgatory, a place where time stood still and the past was ever present. There was no escape, no redemption, only the endless torment of his own making.